Before starting this video, I do want to give a thank you to my patrons that support the channel. And if you would like to support the channel, there are some great benefits for you in the link down below. So with that, let's get into today's video. Hey, what's going on YouTube? This is Devin coming back at you with another video today on PubStomp MTG. Glad to have you here. So with this video, I am going to be discussing Atraxa Grand Unifier in CEDH, almost like a guideline you may want to consider when building your own Atraxa decks. But before I do get into the video, make sure you smash that like button and hit subscribe. That is definitely one of the best ways to support the channel as I'm trying to grow the channel. Also, I do have a Discord as well if you do want to join it down below in the link, where we talk about different discussions of decks as well, and also some deck upgrades. So if you do want to go join a great community, come by and check it out. I did also want to let you know I do have a deck list down below in the description if you do want to go check it out, more as a guideline for your own CEDH decks when you're building Atraxa. So I found this pretty fun and overall successful when running a lot of different CEDH games. I haven't run a tournament with it, but I definitely want to eventually in the future. It has seen some pretty great results overall, seeing some top 16s in some CEDH tournaments. So to give you an overview of this video, I do want to talk about why you should run Atraxa and give her a shot in your next commander deck. She's an absolute blast and you will not regret playing her whatsoever. Also, I did want to talk about some of the win cons you do want to run in the deck, and with some of the strategies you do want to follow when going with Atraxa. So there's a lot of things to discuss, so let's get into it.
Become free from your flesh and serve Atraxa.
So when discussing why you may want to consider running Atraxa as a 4-color commander, there's a lot of things you do need to know, especially with her being a high mana cost. That is the one downside to her, but everything else is absolute upside. There's a lot of different versions of her, but especially being in CEDH, she is pretty potent, especially being on the battlefield, being a 7/7, flying vigilance, death touch, and lifelinker. In some situations in games, lifelink and vigilance is absolutely incredible, especially when some people are in aggro strategies like Nigella or in Timna in some other examples. I've also knocked out a couple players because of commander damage. 3 swings away with Atraxa will be GG for one opponent. Something I do like about Atraxa is the fact that she does have lifelink. When you cast an ad nauseum, you're going to be losing a lot of life in the process. This helps negate that a little bit. Or if you have swung away a couple times with Atraxa, then you get an ad nauseum, you can get a lot more cards out of that. Not only is she super imposing on the battlefield, being a big threat, she also has a great ETB. In most situations, I typically draw 4 to 6 cards from Atraxa's ETB, so that's incredible value, especially when you utilize it with certain cards that I'm going to talk about later on in the video. Another reason to run Atraxa is the fact that your opponents may underestimate her because she is a 7 mana commander. So a lot of opponents may be caught off by her. She could possibly go down on turn 2 or 3 depending on the right situation in our hand. Again, the biggest drawback for her is she is a 7 mana commander. Also in 4 colors, it's harder to cast her. However, after playing her for a couple months, those are really minor drawbacks. I do feel like she's a pretty powerful, and especially when we get her on the battlefield, it's almost game over for our opponents in most cases. Speaking of which, let's talk about the combos I run in the deck personally. So the first combo I do want to talk about is a good one in the deck, probably the strongest one because of the amount of tutors we do have, but I would say Food Chain is definitely the best combo. You don't even need Miss Hollow Griffin half the time. I mean, if you could get Miss Hollow Griffin into the Food Chain line, definitely do it. However, in most situations, you're going to have a lot of mana dorks lying around, so you could tap them for mana and then sacrifice them to Food Chain so that you can net more mana. So then with all that mana, you could then cast Atraxa Grand Unifier. Normally on our ETB, you will find a creature so that you can cast that creature to sacrifice it to Food Chain so that you can sacrifice Atraxa again to repeat the process a couple times. You may find a Miss Hollow Griffin as well along the process. Also, something nice about Miss Hollow Griffin is you can pitch it to Force of Will so you can put it in exile so that you can cast it later on. To be fair, this is the main combo, but it's not the most consistent combo compared to Demonic Consultation and Tainted Pact with Thassa's Oracle. I mean, in CEDH, if you are playing black and blue, you're probably playing these because it's the most consistent win con in the format right now. Another combo I do want to bring your attention to is the Displacer Kitten to Fairy Time Raveler combo. So you'll need a positive mana rock like a Mana Crypt. So all three will be on the battlefield. You will use Teferi's -3 ability to return Mana Crypt to your hand. You could also tap Mana Crypt for mana. You will draw a card in the process when you return Mana Crypt to your hand as well. Then you would cast Mana Crypt. Displacer Kitten will trigger to blink Teferi Time Raveler, so a new fresh Teferi will enter the battlefield again. Then you could repeat that process by returning Mana Crypt to your hand, drawing a card, and then getting infinite mana and infinite card draw that way. I will say though, Teferi Time Raveler could be at a positive effect for your opponents when it's their turn. They could possibly win the game because none of your opponents could interact with that other opponent trying to win the game because of Teferi Time Raveler's ability. So if you do plan on casting Teferi Time Raveler, make sure you're winning the game that turn, or else someone next turn may win the game because they can't be interacted with. With the March of the Machine set, there was a pretty cool card that I do want to showcase in another combo in the video. There are multiple ways to get there, but we do have Atraxa Grand Unifier on the battlefield. We can Neoform Atraxa Grand Unifier to put in Hoarding Broodlord. So Hoarding Broodlord has that ability when you enter the battlefield, search your library for a card, exile it face down, then shuffle. For as long as that spell remains exiled, you may play it, and spells you cast from exile have Convoke. So the card you will search for is Saw in Half. You can convoke Saw in Half with the Hoarding Broodlord so that it costs 2 mana. Then you will make 2 copies of Hoarding Broodlord on the battlefield. They will both trigger. You can search your library for 2 cards. So the first card you will search for is Sacrifice. You could actually convoke one of your dragons so that you could pay for Sacrifice's mana cost. So you'll cast Sacrifice and you'll sacrifice one of your Hoarding Broodlords. They retain their mana cost even though they're tokens because they're a copy of it. So with that resolved, you will have 8 floating black mana to cast another spell. And that spell is Peer into the Abyss. When resolving Peer into the Abyss, you will draw half of your library. And from there, that should be enough where you could resolve a specific combo to win the game. And if you can't, you probably need to fix your deck up a little bit. I played roughly 10 games with this combo specifically in the deck. There was 5 times where I actually pulled it off. Sometimes people will counter that combo because they know what's going on. But usually if I resolve this combo, I'm usually winning the game. You also don't have to worry about Neoforming Atraxa. You could also use Entomb and Reanimate to do the same thing with this combo. So those are some of the combos I run specifically in this deck. Some of the combos I really try to look for when playing the game. I do also want to talk about some strategies you may want to consider when running Atraxa. So there are cards I do want to highlight, mainly the clones like Phantasmal Image and Phyrexian Metamorph. They provide such great value. For example, if there's a Grand Abolisher on the battlefield, we could copy that so that we could go for the win. They could also clone Dockside Extortionist on opponent's side of the battlefield so that we could Ritual Atraxa on the battlefield. But in most cases, I've actually copied my own Atraxa so I could get the card draw to find some value. So these clones do have multi-use outside of just being clones copying a Dockside. They could also copy our commander to get some more card draw. On top of that, why not get some more card draw by having some blink spells like Displacer Kitten and Emil the Blessed. I previously mentioned Displacerkin, but this is honestly one of the best cards in the deck, mainly with the combo synergy with Atraxa. It's almost like a 2-card combo. When you have Displacerkin and Atraxa on the battlefield, it's nearly impossible to stop because normally we'll have some low CMC spells or even free artifacts to cast so that we can blink Atraxa again to get more value on top of that. Normally I've drawn about 30 to 40 cards just off of Displacerkin alone with Atraxa on the battlefield. Emil is pretty consistent though, having that ability so that we can pay mana into blinking another creature like Atraxa will provide great value, and on top of that, if we do have one of our clones on the battlefield copying a Dockside, we can continuously go back and forth getting infinite mana that way. With Atraxa out and one of these 2 cards on the battlefield, our opponents definitely don't want to underestimate the power that we could bring to the table. Another card I did want to highlight is Smothering Tithe. Because our commander is huge, she is a 7 mana commander, we need all the ramp we could get. In CEDH, people are drawing left and right with Rhystic Studies, Mystic Remoras, and other means with Esper Sentinels. So Smothering Tithe will provide us so much mana because they may not be able to pay into that, so we'll get a lot of treasures out of that. Especially if wheels are going on, we'll get so much treasure we don't even know what to do with it. Plus it does provide a great stacks piece. If people do want to pay into it, they could definitely do that. They won't be able to cast other spells if they do so. I did also want to touch on Grand Abolisher and Silence because they are the ones that protected my game plan the most when I'm trying to win the game. I will touch on Silence a little bit because it's a pretty funny card when you think about it. When somebody casts a Final Fortune, on their next turn they try to go for something, then you'll cast Silence, they can't cast anything for the rest of the turn, and they will lose the game. It's absolutely hilarious when it happens like that. The only reason why I bring this up because I was on the opposite end. I was playing Final Fortune, and then on that next turn, someone silenced me, so I had to lose the game on that turn. It was absolutely awful, but honestly, I couldn't blame him. It was absolutely hilarious at the same time. Honestly, I'd take some silence spells over some counter spells when it comes to protecting my win cons. However, that's going to do it for me, guys. Thank you guys so much for coming by and watching this video on Atraxa Grand Unifier. I know I made a video on her a long time ago when she was first spoiled, but I thought I'd revisit her, show you some of the results that I've seen with her. She is an absolutely fantastic commander. I've had so much fun with her, especially playing her in CEDH. I played a lot of CEDH games with her, and I found her pretty consistent overall. There's a lot of different combos, layered combos that I felt pretty good when playing her. Honestly, the silence effects are the best part of the deck, no question about it, because it can protect our win con. That's what's so great about her. She is 4-color. Unfortunately, we are missing red to play Dockside Extortionist and Underworld Breach, but that's a small price to pay for this amazing commander. But to be honest, I've had an absolute blast playing Atraxa Grand Unifier. I've showed up to a lot of different games, had some success with her, and I thought I'd share with you some of the results that I've had with her. So again, I wanted to share with you some of the combos and some of the strategies you may want to consider running with Atraxa. I did also want to share some news with you. I am having a new co-host coming along, Pope Stomp MTG. His name is Spencer. He has a couple videos coming up in the near future, so you definitely want to go check him out. He's a pretty great player overall when it comes to CEDH, so he has a lot of great dive-ins, so definitely come check him out when he has videos posted. I do also have a second announcement for this channel. So with this channel, I am going to be having some gameplay videos, mainly to just show off some of the decks that I have been building so that I can present it to you guys so that you can have an idea how a deck runs and operates. So with these gameplay videos, they're probably going to come out maybe hopefully once a month so that you guys can come check them out. I also do have an intro ready and prepared for you, so here it is right now. So that was just a little taste of what's to come with the gameplay videos that are coming out probably in the next month or so. I didn't realize how much it takes to edit those videos, so bear with me, be patient, they will come out soon. So with those announcements being said, trust me, Atraxa Grand Unifier is worth the hype. She is absolutely incredible in CEDH, playing her as a commander. So make sure you like, share, and subscribe to the channel, and with that out of the way, thank you for stomping by.